Joe Biden spent decades sniffing the hair of strangers and delivering unwanted Eskimo kisses. Just tonight, 2 more women have come forward to say his touching made them uncomfortable. Biden is being attacked for all this by some, but so far, the people who matter, Nancy Pelosi and Valerie Jarrett, among many others, have defended the former vice president. Democratic presidential candidates aren't demanding he stay out of the race. It seems increasingly likely that Biden could survive these stories. Whatever happens to Biden, misconduct allegations increasingly dominate internal Democratic disputes. Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax is still combating sexual assault allegations from 2 separate women. In a new interview, one of those women says that Fairfax preyed upon her specifically because she'd been assaulted before. Tammy Bruce is a radio host and president of Independent Women's Voice, and she joins us tonight. Tammy, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, Tucker.
So I think that there's a lot to criticize about Joe Biden. I think he's weird. I think this behavior is creepy. On the other hand, I don't want to live in a country where people are afraid to hug each other, because I think hugging each other is a good thing.
Yeah, sure.
And then I also think the Democratic Party is appallingly hypocritical and power hungry. So I have all these conflicting emotions, and I hope that you will sort out these stories for us.
Well, I'll try, because what Joe Biden's doing, the average man, if he did it at work, would be fired. Okay. There is a difference between hugging somebody, and we've all been through that.
Right.
And in Mr. Biden's case, in the new case and also in the Flores case, there was a restraint of someone physically. In Flores' case, he restrained her by her shoulders. In other cases, he restrains women by holding their jawline or their neck area. And Ms. Flores described him coming up behind her. The Washington Post said he placed his hands on her shoulders. He was restraining her. And then he moved in and his face moved into her hair. It was an intimate action that you would normally reserve for loved ones, a spouse or someone you know and you love. And then after a while, he then slowly kissed the back of her head. That's not hugging someone. That's
no,
very.
It's not.
That's
now you've really brought it into stark relief
right.
with that description.
And especially because you can also hug a man. Now, what we have never seen Joe Biden do is that very same thing to a man, because maybe he doesn't want to give the wrong impression or he doesn't want to be punched in the nose. But you usually, my advice to people have been in companies, if you wouldn't do it to a man, don't do it to a woman. That usually is your gauge if something's appropriate or not. And so in this particular case, of course we want to be able to have a demonstrative society. And this is not brain surgery. That and it's not about even your own intention. It's that why would you, if you would do something if someone is recoiling, if you have to restrain them in order to be able to do it, if you're doing it from behind, if you are, of course, this is what's fascinating with the Democratic Party. There are men who, whether it's Harvey Weinstein, which is an issue, of course, of rape, and certain issues of just sexual harassment, perhaps in this case with Mr. Biden, and other issues with Mr. Fairfax, is that these are men who claim to be the champions for women, who claim to be the facilitators like Joe Biden of the Violence Against Women Act. And yet that's the excuse that their defenders use. It's like, look at what they've done for us, and that has kept women from feeling comfortable talking about the nature of what's happened to them. It's an interesting dynamic that we have to be aware of.
No, I think that you just changed my mind on it completely. Right. Tammy, great to see you tonight.
Thank you, dear. Thanks for having me.